the privilege of coming to you to talk to you about money, life, and everything else. We say on this show that money encompasses everything. And every single week, we make an effort to bring topics that are relevant and timely. So tonight, definitely you want to call your friends, you want to call your family members and let them know to tune in to Let's Talk Money with Friends, because the topic is relevant and timely. If you are a parent or a student, if you've gone to school or are going to school right now in terms of college, you know how expensive it is to go to school. So tonight we have a guest with us. His name is Will Tarashuk, and Will Tarashuk is going to talk about his podcast. He's a podcaster, just like I would say I am a podcaster here on Wednesdays. And also too, he will be talking about the $1.8 trillion of student loan debt that we have in this country, how it is impacting us, what we can do, and what we need to learn as individuals in order for us to get under that heavy burden. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my guest, my friend, my new friend, who was introduced to me by another friend who came on the show. Will, why don't you say hello? Let us know why you decided to be on the show tonight. And then we're going to dive into this very important conversation.
All right.
Student loan debt.
All right, Gabrielle, thank you very much. My name is Will Tarashuk, and as she said, I am a podcaster. I'm the founder of Willie T Productions, and I came on here because we did a podcast the other night. My podcast is called Talking with Tarashuk. The episode with Gabrielle is actually going to be released next Friday, so mark your calendars. I got to get working on that all of next week. But yeah, happy to talk about student loans. It's a touchy subject for me, but we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely, because you and I both went to college and we know how expensive that is. But before we dive into this, as I said, you're a podcaster, and I know this is not an easy task. It's not an easy thing to do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you, your background. How did you grow up? What's your background?
Yeah, so I am also a South Shore, Massachusetts boy. I grew up in Braintree, Massachusetts. My whole family's been there. I loved growing up in Braintree. It's a great town, great school system, public schooling. And then I went to Hofstra University, Long Island, for journalism school. So I was a journalism major, and it was there my sophomore year of college, I decided to start a podcast. In high school, I listened to podcasts. I did some like public access TV. I knew I wanted to do journalism, but I didn't know that podcasting and now video podcasting was really going to be my calling until, I wanted to stand out on a resume. When someone's like, why did you start podcasting in February of 2015? The answer was, I wanted to stand out on a resume as opposed to the rest of my class with job applications. And it did, honestly. I got hired right out of college at a production company startup. Their goal was to be the economist on video. As startups do, that failed. So I ended up going back to my roots in podcasting, starting a podcast company. And 5 years later, here we are. Podcasting really has kind of been my saving grace. It's my center. It's my career. It really is like my defining characteristic as a man. It's a podcaster.
Really? I know, because the other day Monday, actually, we've been talking via email and text. And then you said, Gabrielle, you're going to do this for about an hour. And I'm like, an hour? You think we have enough content for an hour? You're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Easy peasy.
We went on for like an hour and 20 minutes, right?
It's like an hour and 15. I think the longest I went on a podcast was 2 hours. But Gabrielle, I could talk to you for probably 3-4 hours, honestly. It's easy. It's easy.
My God.
It's just too much editing. It's too much editing and too many video files. It's too big.
I know, definitely. So, because I know when I was talking to you, you said that the reason why you started podcasting, or even recently, is to connect business people with the community. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I know for me, it was to share the concept of money and how money works and how money can work for everyone. What about you? Yeah, share that with us, please.
Well, from a personal reason, it's really I podcast for personal growth, and the P in podcasting does stand for personal. And it is a way for me to learn new things and a way for my guests to learn and as well as teach new things. But from a business perspective, I do target founders specifically in the financial space, so Gabrielle, like yourself, because my whole career has been in finance and money related content. So my whole thing is a podcast as a service where you come on a podcast with me. We talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. I go back and repurpose that content for you, your website, your socials. and it's branded and you're branding, and it's content created for you, for a way for you to get your business voice out there in a way that's easy and marketable. Because Gabby, you have a podcast, you know how hard it is to come up with questions, find the guests. It's time consuming. And you as a business owner, it's hard to balance the two. And when I talk to people, they say, you know, if I'm going to start a podcast, I got to take away from my business. So I go, great. How about the hardest part of the podcast is asking the questions and hosting and getting a conversation going. I've been doing that for 8 years. Why don't you just do that with me as a founder, and we can talk about, you know, whatever it is you want to talk about. That's pretty much what we do.
You have to be a multitasker. As
Absolutely.
You can tell, I'm trying to talk to you and trying to broadcast this live as well, because at the end of the day, I go live. You don't go live. You do pre-recorded shows. Because the other day on Monday when I was with you, I'm thinking I'm live. And you're like, no, this is gonna be edited and everything else. For me, going live makes sense, because at the end of the day, I want to get it over with, because it takes so much time to get ready. Podcasting is fun. And so my other question was like, you know, did you go to school? So you went to school for journalism. So you're actually ahead of the curve here. Most people didn't go to school for journalism who are doing podcasting. Mine was finance and taxation. So yeah. So you already had that in mind, right? Were you like in high school? I remember in my high school, we had a radio station. Were you one of those kids who were part of the radio station in high school?
Not high school, but Hofstra, yes. So Hofstra University had WRHU, which was the Long Island radio station on campus. And at the time, it was the #1 non-commercial radio station in the country, college or otherwise. So when I was going through my tour, I was walking through a studio and go, I'm going here. This is where I'm going to be, because I want to be a part of this radio station. Because I knew at the time, 17 years old and a senior in high school, whatever, that like, this is going to give me career opportunities. This is networking. This is everything. And to an extent, it gave me training on like Adobe Audition for editing. It gave me training on this microphone and like how all this equipment works. So it gave me that. But really what set me apart was podcasting, what I did on my own in my dorm room. So at Hofstra, I hosted the Screening Room, which was 10 a.m. every Sunday morning, a movie review and news show. And 10 a.m. was hard. Let me tell you, 10 a.m. could be pretty hard, but the best compliment I ever got, ever professionally, was, Will, you are my morning cup of coffee, because when you come on and host this show, the energy you bring, it just wakes me up. And I go, I don't know how I do it. I just do it. When this microphone is on and we are live, I'm a completely different person. This is how it works.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? I know communication or public speaking is one of those things that most people are afraid. I have a couple ladies at the gym. I've been trying to convince them to come on the show, and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. But for me, I was saying to you offline that I worked for a TV station here in Boston when I first came out of college. And I remember thinking, I know I'm in the finance department, but I will really love to be in front of the camera, because of the fact that I've always wanted to communicate and have conversation. And I think if the idea of just like giving people a space, businesses, many of the business owners that you have on your show that I've seen, they're very quiet, they're very meek people, but once you bring it out of them, they really do very well in the conversations that you hold with them. And I know for me on the show, like many times folks have said, oh, I never thought I could do this, but because we bring it out of them and they're able to get it done. You know, it's just communicating with people. And I'm so excited, because tonight we're going to be communicating about something that's very important. As I said, $1.8 trillion in student debt that families and students are dealing with right now, as of right now. So do you, as someone who went to college, do you feel like the cost of education is worth it?
Well, you have to define worth, really. Like that's a personal question. So I can give a personal anecdote here. I think the way college is structured now, it's about 50-50, because the idea of the benefits of college, like for me, I learned way more outside of the classroom than I did inside of the classroom. So if I was 18, I go back to college and do this all over again? Absolutely. The experience I had in college was life-changing. Could I have gotten that experience outside of college? Maybe, if not probably, but college did wonders for me socially, personally, growth, development, career, all that. But college has some tricks, and a lot of the, especially with Hofstra, they had prerequisites. So I was taking classes. I knew I was going to be a journalism major the first day I stepped on campus, freshman year. So
Wow.
the fact that I had to take science classes, I had to take math classes, I had to take these prerequisites, looking back, to me, was just an excuse to make sure I'm there for 4 years. Another thing Hofstra mandated I do was 3 internship credits. Now, that's fine on paper. However, they made you pay for those credits. So internships weren't really paid. So I had to pay to work for free in order to graduate. So riddle me that one. That's so when you have all those things, is college worth it? No. If I was a music major, do I say college is worth it? Absolutely not. I think there's some people who shouldn't go to college because they shouldn't necessarily be college degrees. I think STEM and sciences, for most part, should. Arts, I don't think needs to be part of a major university. I think arts like acting or music or dance can be a specialization. It doesn't need a 4-year degree. That makes sense. It's like, can you get benefit from going to music school? Absolutely. A 4-year university where you're going to be $100,000 in debt? No, absolutely not. So in terms of worth, that really is a personal question to you. And to me, I still go back and forth. But overall, I say yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, in my opinion, education is always worth it. However, who should be carried that cost? Who should be carried that cost? Because at the end of the day, our education benefits everybody. It benefits society, it benefits employers, benefits the country. So should they all be responsible to carry that cost? I think, in my opinion, it's right. So I think more employers should be paying for our education, or government should be paying for our education. There are countries where they have universal education, where kids are not coming out of college with $1.8 trillion in student loan debt. How do you feel about that?
Well, think about it this way, right? This is America. It's a free country, supposed to be. So I value choices, right? Hofstra was a private institution. I chose to go there. So the burden is on me to pay that debt because I made that choice. No one put a gun to my head and forced me to go to college. Society did, but metaphorically. Now, think about public schooling. Public schooling pays for K to 12. It makes sense that it would also pay for pre-K and it would also pay for college. So I support a public option for school through college that is taxpayer funded. However, it should not be universally taxpayer funded. Public colleges and public choice should still be a thing. That's just competition, and competition makes everybody better. So yeah, I fully support a public option for school. Should all schooling be free? Probably not. Probably not.
Probably not. But I mean, Forbes magazine advises, I was reading, it says college in the last 30 years, the cost for a public 4-year college gone from $4,160 to $10,700. That's public colleges. But for private colleges, from $19,360 to $38,000 on average per year. That's a lot.
It is.
Because of that, that's the reason why we have a $1.8 trillion student loan debt, right?
Well, it's kind of funny because a reason that debt is so high in the government trying to fix a problem that they probably caused themselves. Government guaranteed student loans. So when you take out student loans, it's not your money. It's technically the government's money that you got to pay back. So when the colleges said that, they went, oh, the government's guaranteeing the loans. Guess who can just jack up their prices, which is exactly what they did because the government is guaranteeing the loans. So if you have a guarantee from the government always pays its debts one way or the other. So yeah, obviously you're going to jack up prices. That's just good business from the college's perspective. I totally get that. But now government trying to fix a problem that they themselves might have caused.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you're talking about the consumer price index, CPI, or inflation, the cost of college have outpaced inflation. Meaning, like, it's not even keeping up with inflation. It's so much more than inflation that families cannot afford to pay out of pocket. They're constantly having to go and get more loans. And unfortunately, we know that there are many who started school and they're coming out, leaving the universities or leaving the colleges that they entered as freshmen without a degree. And yet they have student loans that they have to pay back.
Yep. And don't forget, when you go to college, you got to pay room and board. You got to pay for textbooks. You got to pay for food. You got to pay for parking. Some places you got to pay for everything else that comes with the school. And the money that gets put, like, thought experiment here. Like, I don't know this for sure, but you can figure it out on your own. With those rising rates of tuition and rising costs of everything, has the education gotten better? Really? Has it really gotten better? Now, some places maybe, some places maybe not. You know, that's a subjective question that might not have an actual answer. But has the quality of education really gotten that much better? If I was a guessing man, a betting man, I'd say probably not. It's probably been the same, if not a little bit worse.
Yeah. So again, the Forbes had reported that the average student is coming out of college with $35,260,000 in student loan debt, right? So what do you suggest? I mean, I know there are some ways to get your loan forgiven. There is this forgiveness. Some who do work for nonprofit organization or public servant get their loans forgiven. Do you believe that after we paid, let's say you've chosen, like you said, I made the choice to go to a private school, and I went to a public school and then to a couple private schools. You made the choice to do that, right? We made the choice to do that. But what about once you start working? Would it be beneficial as well for our employees or for the government, depending? Because public servants, they do get that loan forgiveness opportunity if they're paid for 10 years, right?
Yep.
After 10 years of regular payments, they're able to get their loan forgiven. But what about others? Do you think that would be a great option for them as well to work hard for 10 years and then get that mortgage, I call it, that student loan mortgage forgiven?
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal idea. You know, my buddy works for a nonprofit, and he's pretty close to getting his student debt wiped. And when you work for a nonprofit, you got to make sacrifices. That's not great job security, but it's not as secure as other avenues you can do. When you work for a nonprofit, you really focused on making a difference and changing, right? You were doing the right thing for the right reason, and money becomes secondary. So yeah, if you're a public servant, yeah, I totally support your debt being forgiven because it is going towards the greater good. So absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So they call it the public service loan forgiveness program, the public service loan forgiveness program. I have a friend of mine. She called me the other day. She said, Gabrielle, guess what? She's a social worker. $300,000 was forgiven last year for her.
Wow.
$300,000. She went all the way to, like, she has 2 masters and she's working for the city, and they forgave $300,000 for her. So that was a big alleviation. The reason I said that, because by forgiving that debt, guess what? All of a sudden, the very first thing that she went about doing was she went to purchase a home. So why, going back again, why is it important to support families? And how has that $1.8 trillion debt impacted working class families?
It makes us put our lives on hold, which is so frustrating, right? Like, I talked to my grandmother about this pretty frequently. You know, she was part of, I guess, the greatest generation, born in like 1934, let's say. So she had a very, like, you know, she also had a very, very tough time through like depression, all this stuff. But it's very different now because she bought her house in New Jersey for $15,000. Maybe a little more, give or take, in the 60s, the 50s, or the 50s. It was the 50s. Like, that's just not possible anymore. It's just not possible. And we can't, like, the American dream is buying a house, right? And they're saying that the baby boomers are going to pass down trillions of dollars of inheritance to the next generation, which is great. But it's kind of sad that the greatest hope for my generation is that the previous one has to die. And then that's how we get that money. And then we can start our lives. So we're going to start our lives when we're 40. I don't want to raise a toddler when I'm 45 years old, or have a kid in high school when I'm in my 50s, and in college when I'm in my 60s. Like, I'm going to be paying for college when I should be retiring. That's who would want that? You know what I mean? Like, I have $20,000 of student debt. So Biden's $20,000 left, I should say. So $10,000 wiped would be like, okay, I can actually start thinking about saving for a wedding. I can start thinking about hopefully getting a promotion and buying a house. This $10,000 not being wiped, it's just like, okay, how much longer do I have to put my hopes and dreams on
Yeah.
hold. Like, I love my career. I love podcasting. My goal in life is to be a father. Ever since I was a kid, all I want to do is to be a dad, 2 little boys. That's all I want in life.
Wow.
I have to put that on hold now.
Yeah.
For how long? Who knows?
And
Who knows?
many have had to do the same thing. And I know we were talking offline saying, like, listen, with the rate of population growth, when we decided to postpone childbirth, many times by postponing it, for a guy, it's perhaps easier. They'll ended up with that dream regardless, even in their 40s. But for a young lady, that dream might become nullified, right? Because of the fact that that opportunity, that window opportunity is gone. And the reason why, for many of the people that I know, the window opportunity, they're so busy paying off debt and they cannot afford just like a basic living, cost of living here. It's becoming more and more expensive. In addition to not being able to afford an apartment, not being able to afford just like groceries because it's so expensive, because the income is not out, it's not keeping up with the cost of living, right? And then you have that mortgage, the student loan mortgage, you're coming out of school with a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 job, and you have $100,000. The average is 35, but I know people, especially my friend who had $300,000 and others who have over $100,000. So yeah, definitely. If we were talking about, like you said, you have not been able to start a family because of that, and yours is only 20,000. Can you imagine? So, I mean, what do you see for this country if something doesn't get done? And especially you started talking about the Biden forgiveness. Why has that not been done? Can you talk about what's been going on with that as well? The Biden.
I think
forgiveness,
there's multiple reasons why it didn't get done. Let's not forget. So when you go, if you have student loans and you file for bankruptcy, if you file for bankruptcy, this as a financial planner, all your debt gets wiped. If you have student loans, that debt does not get wiped. You're stuck paying it. When that bill passed, who championed that bill to put that provision in? Joe Biden. Joe Biden did that. So the reason why you can't default on your student loans is because of Joe Biden. So let's not forget that either. So that's a great irony. Now he's the one who's going to fix the problem he created. So he didn't really want to do this to begin with, I don't think. And he got pressure by people like Bernie and voters to actually put this provision in. His advisors were telling him, don't do it. But he did. He did. So God bless him. He did. People can change, I guess.
Correct.
Now, he did it under the 2003 law, under an emergency. He tried to use COVID, which that was your first mistake. You tried putting this under COVID, and COVID was pretty much under wraps by that time, arguably. I don't want to relitigate COVID here, but he had better options, which he is now trying to explore, which is the Higher Education Act, saying that the government owns the Department of Education, the Treasury, whatever, owns the debt. So like if I owned you $200 and technically you own my debt, you could be like, you know what, Will, forget it. We're clear. It's all good. I don't need it. So the government has legal authority to actually do that, which is what he's trying to do now. But he's saying that's going to take like 6 months, if not longer, so we can do it right, which to me sounds like, hey, man, we're pushing this to 2024 so you can vote for me. Good luck.
Good luck.
So, but now it's just like,
you were mentioning the Higher Education Relief Opportunity for Student Act, right? The Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act of 2003. That's the one they're deciding, saying like, yes, within that act, they have the right to forgive loans that the government deemed, could be a relief, given the fact that we just dealt with COVID-19 and so many families are not able to keep up with their expenses, right? But go ahead.
Well, sorry, what was the question?
No, the question about like Biden. I know when I first heard Biden is gonna forgive $10,000, of course, within an income limit of 125 if you're single, 250 if you're married. If you have a direct loan, you will get 10,000 forgiven, or up to $20,000 forgiven.
For Pell Grants,
For Pell Grants. So I was excited about that. Everybody was excited. I remember sending that text to all my contacts, the link, so that they all would apply.
Yeah, I applied day one, and honestly, it was a weight lifted off my shoulders. I was just like, I was like, I have so many opportunities here, because what I did with my finances. So the pause has been for 3 years, interest free, for COVID, during COVID under Trump. He put that in there. So what I did is, okay, Trump's president, I'm going to make my regular payments, because I was still working, right? I wasn't commuting. I was actually kind of having money. I had a few stimulus checks. So I was like, okay, let me keep making payments. It's interest free. It's just going to be straight to the principal. I'll pay this shit off faster. So but then when Biden became president, I was like, okay, it might be forgiven. But then again, it's the government. It might not be forgiven. So what I did was
the challenges, right? The challenges, because 6 states decided to challenge Biden's proposal to forgive those student loans debt, right? Right.
Which I had a feeling might happen. So what I did was I saved the money I would have had to pay anyway, just in a savings account. So over the past few years, I saved about $5,000, and now I have that $5,000 I can use. But now I'm in a position where, do I spend that $5,000 and get rid of like my emergency savings and put it towards the principal now? Or do I like roll the dice and gamble and wait and see if this new Biden plan comes through? So these 6 states really put me in a pickle, and the government's not really giving you any answers, because now payments is set to resume. And it's just like, okay, I'm going to make those payments because I have to, but it's like, what do I do with this money I saved? And is this money going to be forgiven or not? Go ahead.
And you were smart, because you were able to be disciplined enough to save that money and set it aside, just in case, things were to reset. Because right now everybody's on deferment, no payment for now. But if everything were to reset and saying like, okay, it's time to pay, I think actually I was reading they're saying like by either September or October, we're gonna have to start paying our monthly payments. But what should people who live in those states? Okay, well, since it's already beyond them right now, because the Supreme Court already ruled.
Oh, you shut it down. Yeah.
But if you are from Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, South Carolina, Ohio, Iowa, you definitely want to do something, right? Because they're the reason why we are not able to get our $10,000 forgiveness, right?
It's funny. So it wasn't just the states that sued, it was also the people, like the servicers of the debt. So the people who are holding the debt also sued. And some of the workers, I kid you not, some of the workers who work at those companies looked at this case and go, we have no standing on this case. Like, why are we suing? We have no standing. This case should be thrown out. The people who are suing, who the company they work for, the workers of the company who was suing was saying this case should not be happening. Yeah. And yet it was thrown out anyway. So what can these people do? I don't know, man. What can you do? I guess call your senator to deaf ears.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? What are they going to do, really?
It seems like we're burying us under $1.8 trillion in student loan debt is something, it's big business. Because if the services are suing, it's big business. Because at the end of the day, if we didn't have that debt, so much more we could do with our time and our resources. I.e., you mentioned get married, have children, start a business, and start a business, help with the population growth. We have a problem here because pretty soon we said that if folks are not having kids, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Well, it's going to be interesting to move forward. What happens because right now, it's Q3, beginning of Q3, so it's earnings season. These companies are starting to report, like the CPI, the inflation data, I believe, came out today. Inflation is around 3%, so the government says. The CPI data is coming out. It's going to be interesting to see how these repayments affect the consumer. Because obviously the market is driven on consumption, to which I say the market's driven on debt because the spending numbers are up, and I think there's multiple reasons for that. Now, I'm not a financial expert, so fact check me on everything I say here and quote, and don't hear me now, quote me later. But I think that we have spending numbers are up, but they're putting it on credit cards. Last I looked at credit card information, we have like $986 billion of credit card debt in this country, which is like an all-time high. So people are spending, but they're not paying it off. So they don't have the money. So when this resumes, what's that going to do to actual spending? Because they don't have the money. I mean, put the past 3 years, it's been interest free. If people had the money, they would have paid it off. I'm sure some people did. But most people didn't, because otherwise it would be gone. We wouldn't be, if this wasn't such a big issue during these past 3 years of no interest, we wouldn't have $1.8 trillion. We'd have maybe half that if people could actually pay it off.
So it's a struggle, regardless whether it's on hold or not. It's a struggle.
I think people need to realize this debt is never going to be paid off, ever. It's never going to be paid off.
But I think that the other hindrance is we have a situation where if the alleviation doesn't happen, if we don't get forgiveness, and your average family or average person does not get the support that they need in order for them to move on with life, that we are all going to suffer, because employers right now are benefiting from the work that I did in school, right? The work that you did in school. But once we all get older, if you don't have children to replace the workforce, there's going to be a problem. So we have to look at the big picture, and we have something needs to be done. And I think Biden loan forgiveness is important, and we have to do everything we can, to fight against it, right? To fight forward, definitely. So at the end of the day, I know that the student loan debt, it is what it is. But what would you suggest someone who's not already burdened because their kids are still in high school and they haven't gone through the process of applying for grants or for applying for student loans, and they have young children and they would like little junior to go to college? What would you suggest they do to get ready for college, that I believe is worth it to go to college? And you're saying like perhaps they could do trainings and different things, but what can they do if they really want to that dream of a college degree?
It's interesting because a lot of young people, I think they're called Gen Alpha, which is after Gen Z, and Gen Z as well. They don't want to go to college. They have no interest in college. They are not stupid. They grew up on the internet. They hear people like me complaining about student loans and go, wow. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go do something else. So like if you're in high school and you don't know what you want to do in life, do not go to college. Do not go to college until you figure out exactly what you want to do in life. Until I want to be a podcast producer like I did, do not go to college. Take a year off. Go work. If you want to make really good money, be a trade. Now, AI is not going to replace carpenters. It's not going to replace builders. It's not going to replace plumbers. It's not going to replace electricians. AI might replace podcasting, to be honest, right? So if you don't know what you want to do, do not go to college. And furthermore, if you cannot afford college, do not go to college. That'd be my best advice.
Yeah. What about like if you have young kids and you like to plan? Do you suggest well, I mean, they are always scholarship, like Pell Grants, for example. They have tons of scholarship, because I know for me, I applied for everything. And subsequently, I came out with very little debt. But, is it important to apply for everything and also maybe keep a part-time, full-time job? That's another thing that I did. I worked while I was going to school.
I don't think that's possible anymore. College is too expensive to work through college. It can help.
What are you implying, Will? What are you implying? I'm implying that I'm from the
Well, I'm implying that you used to be able to do that. Right. So like if you work through school, it might pay for your meal plan. It might pay for room and board. It might pay for textbooks, which is very helpful. But if you're a young couple and you had a newborn baby and you want to save for college, you have extra money, open a 529 plan. 529 plans are phenomenal for saving for college, and look for those kinds of resources. Gabrielle, I'm sure you can name plenty.
The 529 plan is so important, because I tell my friends.
It's amazing. I'm going to open one. As soon as I get married and have a kid, I'm opening a 529 plan.
You could actually open one right now.
I could open one right now. I absolutely could. But I got to pay off loans first.
I know.
See, if I didn't have these loans, I would be opening a 529 plan. I would be opening a high yield savings account, but I can't.
Yeah. you open a 529 plan. That's another
Yeah.
way, because I know many times you have kids and their friends, family members, and everybody's bringing toys, bringing like things that they really don't need. You could tell them bring money. I know a friend of mine, she's very strategic. She's like, no toys. I already buy them enough toys. Please bring me a check, even if it's $10.
Yep.
And
Me
she takes
cash.
it directly to the 529 plan. And she's been able so far to really build a really great account for a child who's not even 5 yet. So it's so important to know that anybody can contribute to that 529 plan.
Yes,
It's not like
absolutely.
your retirement account where only you can contribute with your own income. Anybody can contribute. So I would say teach your kids how to work when the snow, winter time, have them come out to help the neighbors and get a couple dollars from here and there. And guess what? That money can be saved for college education. Apply for tuition. Apply themselves in school, because if you do well in school, you have a better chance of getting what? A free ride, right? Or
Yeah,
at least half of your college paid for, right?
I was on academic scholarship.
Me too.
They paid for half, which
Yeah.
thank God they did. Also, in high school, I had a job. It was a place called Linden Ponds in Hingham, Massachusetts. It was an
Correct.
assisted living facility, and I was a waiter. I was a server for the elderly, served them food. Honestly,
Yeah.
it was the greatest first job I could have ever asked for. But they also had a scholarship. So if you worked 1,000 hours
Mhm.
at Linden Ponds over your tenure, they gave you $1,000 scholarship per semester every
Correct.
year you were in college. So that
Yeah.
was incredibly helpful. It's $1,000, right?
Yeah.
Not much, but it helped a lot. It's like $8,000 I have to pay back now. So look for things like that. Look for things in your community that can really help you out, like a 529 plan, like a scholarship, grants. Absolutely. Exhaust all of those resources.
Yes, write those letters and ask, beg, 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 because at the end of the day, if you beg enough and you get all the money that you need to pay for your education, when you come out, you can have peace of mind and not have to be weighed down by a mortgage, a student loan mortgage that you cannot afford. But also too, I think another thing, we mentioned the debt forgiveness for public servant, but they are not university, but they are employers, really employers that I know of, who
That's
let
also
you
true.
to work, and then they'll forgive your loans after you stay with them for like what, 5 years. So always look for those, and also employees that are offering tuition reimbursement. Not everybody can
Yes.
go to school during the day. Some people might have to do it at night, right? Or online, so that you can have the flexibility of going to work and have an employer that can support part of your tuition expenses, right?
Yeah, it's also an employee benefit. I know my 9-to-5 employer, and I'm a contractor for them, but if I did go full time, which, fingers crossed if they're listening, they would help me pay student loans. They pay X amount a year for your
Correct.
student loans, just as a benefit of working there. I know other places where it's like, if you work in financial journalism and you want to get an MBA in behavioral economics, they will
Correct.
help pay for your tuition. Now, in return, you have to work at the company for like an extra 5 or 6 years. Let's say take it back. So there are some loopholes companies can throw in there.
Yeah.
But those options are there. When you get hired for an employer, read the handbook. Make sure you
Really,
talk to
yeah,
HR and
for
know
benefits.
what you can and can't do for your benefits. People don't do that. It's
And you can even-
shocking. They don't do that.
And you can even ask, depending on the
Yeah.
employer, you can even ask if it's not available, because many times they're not thinking about it. But if enough of you ask about it, they're like, oh, maybe this is something we need to add to our benefits to retain and attract new talents, right? So education matters. We've talked about that on the show. I believe like if it had not been for my education and your education, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. Everything seems to come easy in terms of public speaking and everything, because I remember you talked about like matriculated or non classes that you took that you feel like were not even
Yeah,
well fit for your degree.
the prerequisites.
For
Yeah.
the prerequisites. Listen, I took classes in college that were not even relevant for my degree, i.e. communication. So I don't have a journalism or a communication degree, but I took that because I wanted to be comfortable speaking in public. And I know it costs a lot of money. Not
And
as
listen,
much as it would cost today.
if you're in college and want to pay extra for those electives to pick up those skills, go
Yeah.
for it, right? That just gets you ahead. But for a college to mandate you have to waste money on these classes.
Yeah.
Because like if I want to take geology because I was interested in rocks,
Yeah.
fine. I can go to a local college right now and pay a few $1,000s to take a class. I have the freedom to do that, which I should. But the college mandated I took classes that had nothing to do with my major, nothing to do with my job, and nothing to do with why I went to the school to begin with. And yet they can just
But don't you
do
think
that.
though you have a conversation, because I know geology or geography, I took that that was part of my one of the prerequisites that I took. And whenever I see a storm, I know what's happening.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care about rocks.
I'm like, oh, this is a close one.
You know what I mean? Like if I like nowadays, if I want to learn about rocks, I'll go to LinkedIn, find a geologist, and talk about rocks on a podcast and learn more than I did in that class. Because I gotta tell you, I can't remember a thing from that class. I know I got a B on it though. I got a B in my in it. So that's all I know.
Well, I mean,
even some of my journalism classes were useless, to be honest. I will say though, the best class I took at Hofstra was media in the law. That was a phenomenal class because the answer, like most law things, is, well, it depends.
Yeah.
So that was like the class for journalism.
Yeah. It's so funny for me, Will. Although I have a degree in finance and business and taxation, my favorite classes were not business classes. They were liberal arts classes, like humanity classes.
Yeah.
In terms of like liberal arts in history, political science, things that got me to think about my environment, my sociology, anthropology, things like that. So I know there were electives, but to me, I wanted to learn. I wanted that education, African American studies. Of course, my favorite teacher of all time were my English 101, English 102 professors, because they really exposed us to literature that in high school we had not gotten at that level. So it's very important to me. It's very important that the kids are able to obtain a 4-year education and a comprehensive education, not just a trade. Because if you get a trade, it's okay to go for a trade and everything, but if you are able and willing, you should go for that education. But I also believe that the cost of that ought to be a burden that everybody carries, not just the parent, not just the child, but employers should carry some of that. The government should carry some of that, and society at large, because our tax dollars should be used to pay. I mean, we do get Pell grants, we do get other grants, but I'm saying like more of it should be should not be our burden. It should be other society's burden, right?
Well, I will also say to your point,
everybody.
My favorite classes were philosophy classes.
Yes.
I loved philosophy.
No, that's
exactly right. Socrates and all those people. However,
Shakespeare, right? I
hate Shakespeare. I hate Shakespeare. I wish Shakespeare spoke in English. I wish.
My favorite play, As You Like It, Macbeth. That's things that you learn about how to be a better human being.
I read Macbeth in high school, which Gen Ed belongs in high school. You take Gen Ed classes to figure out what you want to do for a career. If you don't know what you want to do, you take a little bit of everything until you find something special. Now, college, like public college that's taxpayer funded, should be 2 years. You take 2 years, you do your special, journalism, communications, law, med, whatever. And if you want to take extra fluffy philosophy, music, dance, rhetoric, whatever, you go do that on your own dime. Behavior economics, you go do that on your own dime. Right? But like, I should not be forced to take a class that has nothing to do with what I'm there to do just because you want to take my money for 4 years.
Yeah, but we also say yes and no, because I know for many of us who've been exposed, who have parents who are able to take us overseas, travel, theater. I know the kids in my environment who are very blessed because their parents have the means to take them overseas, travel. They get to see, they get culture, right? But there are other students who don't have that opportunity because their parents don't have the means to do it. And I think going to school for me, coming to this country as a foreigner, getting that education and getting exposure to all the things that I was able to get exposed to in college really helped me to become the person that I am today. So with that being said, education matters, but the $1.8 trillion student loan debt is too much of a burden for families. And we definitely must do something as a culture to alleviate that burden, to get rid of that burden for families, for students, because at the end of the day, it's going to cost us more. It's going to cost us a generation of people who are going to get stuck. Stagnation, not being able to start a family, not being able to start a business, not being able to start a life because they are weighted down by the burden of a $1.8 trillion student loan debt. So I love having you on tonight, Will. Please let our audience know how they can find you, your channels, and the time of your show. And yeah, how can they join you as a guest if they are business owners and they would like to use your platform to reach out to more audience?
Absolutely. So my name is Will Tarashuk. It's T as in Thomas, Arashuk. My podcast is called Talking with Tarashuk. It can be found anywhere. If you're watching on YouTube, just go type in Talking with Tarashuk. Again, it's T as in Thomas, Arashuk. Same thing on all podcast platforms for the audio. The logo is pretty much me on an orange background. It's a cartoon picture of my face and my girlfriend made. I love it. If you want to be a guest, if you want to do the podcast as a service, again, what that means is you are a business owner, you want to do marketing content for your business, but you don't have time or resources to really do a podcast. You hire me. We'll go on a podcast for 1 hour. It'll be on video. If you're local to New Jersey, we can do it in studio. If you're not, we can do it over here on Zoom. I will bring you into a custom background graphics package, which means your company logo, your colors, your fonts will all be in there. We do an hour podcast. After that, I go back and cut it up and repurpose it. Gabriella herself is going to see what that's like. She's going to go on 8 clips for YouTube that are greater than 60 seconds and about 18, that's right, 18 shorts, which is 60 seconds or less, designed for TikTok, YouTube, your website, anywhere you can use it. And I also create social copy for them. So I take all those videos, I transcribe them, and with the help of AI like ChatGPT, I write titles, descriptions, hashtags, SEO formatted, and you can use those as a foundation for social media posts for anywhere you need it. It's an all-in-one-stop shop. If you don't have it, if you want to do a podcast, pay me. I do everything.
Definitely. And if you're a business owner, you definitely want to be online because at the end of the day, everybody's online now. So thank you again, Will, for being on the show, for coming on the show. It was great conversation. I know education matters, and I know everybody worries about how can I afford education, that hefty price of education, of higher education for my children and for myself. Definitely think about it. Look for ways to minimize your costs and maximize your education because education matters, but the cost of education is too hefty. Do something about it. Call your elected officials. Do whatever you need to do. And of course, we gave you tips about how to save and how to be practical when it comes to earning a college degree or pursuing an education. So thank you so much. Please tag, share, make a comment. Let your friends know that every single week on Wednesdays, live at 7 o'clock, we are here, and we are here for a reason. We want to connect you with information. We want to give you relevant and timely information. Please do not keep us a secret. Let your friends know because this information here matters. And I know that everybody you know needs this. Everybody needs this because if you have children or a parent, you need this information tonight. So thank you so much. Have a blessed night and see you again next week for another great episode of Let's Talk Money with Friends.